It's a beautiful Thursday night, and it's a good night to look at some Dynasty teams and make some Dynasty trades, ladies and gentlemen. First team we're going to be checking out, it's going to be from Subway Brad. Say, Mason, love the content. Assuming we need to focus on running back, any plan on linking into FFPC so we can get team reviews on my teams on the site? Thanks. Appreciate you, my guy. Excited to check this out. As of now, it is not on the horizon to be linking with FFPC. We have some pretty big things coming on the site, which very, very excited about. I mean, I think we have two things that are going to drop in the next 2 weeks that are going to be freaking massive. But I don't know. I mean, with FFPC, it's just such a small user base. And if you ever wanted to send anything to any of the people on the site, you can always submit screenshots. Maybe like next off season, we'll do it. But right now, we just have so much stuff that we're working on, to be completely honest. But anyway, this is Lone Wolf Dynasty. We are the #1 team in the league analyzer by a decent little margin here. So I'd imagine that this should be a roster which we are going ahead and we are looking to try to contend this season. I mean, very rarely are you ever going to see like a juggernaut team in terms of the value that they have. Makes sense to go ahead and look to punt off for next year, even if a lot of that value is tied to rookie picks. You should still be able to make trades to put yourself in a really comfortable spot. Now, this is a league that depth actually matters a considerable amount, right? Because it's a start 10, but it's only a 1 quarterback league. So in a start 10, 1 quarterback format, I mean, if you just do some simple math here, take out a tight end, take out a quarterback, you're starting 8 combined running backs and wide receivers, especially in a non-PPR league, which this is, because in that non-PPR format, that tight end's really not going to be interesting whatsoever to go ahead and throw in that flex spot. So we are really much wanting to build around both running back as well as wide receiver depth. I mean, obviously, it's stupid simple to look at the quarterback and tight end positions on this roster where we are sitting with Jaden Daniels as well as Brock Bowers. So with these two options, they're anchors. We know that they are really going to help us contend this next season. I mean, right now in redraft leagues, I believe Jaden Daniels is around QB3, QB4. Brock Bowers is clearly tight end 1. So you have the short-term production, and at the same time, if you're looking at these options, these are names that we know you're not going to get the drop-off in either value or production anytime soon, given the fact that they're going into year 2. So really, there's absolutely nothing to talk about at quarterback or tight end. It all centers around wide receiver and running back. Wide receiver, we are sitting with the combo Jefferson, London, JSN, T. Higgins, Ricky Pearsall. So we have 5 guys that we can kind of comfortably project out as starters. Running back, we have Chase Brown, Kyron Williams. 2 running backs on their rookie deals, but at the same time, don't have a ton of team investment. Wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world if these weren't starting running backs 2 years from now, right? So, I mean, definitely if we were having to go ahead and rank like a position that needed some work on this team, it's going to be running back, but I mean, running back's still fine. We still have 2 guys that we can start this next year and are young enough to give us upside for the long term. We still have some depth as well. Rachaad White, I mean, probably is going to be, I don't want to say splitting the backfield, but he's going to have some role in Tampa this next year, while at the same time, you can make an argument that at the very worst, he is going to be a premium handcuff back. So running back's fine. It's just if we're looking at the other positions, yeah, I mean, here we have the 2nd best wide receiver room in this league. We have the best tight end room. We have the 3rd best quarterback room. So if we had to address something, it is going to be the running back position. And honestly, I think that you are in a position in which you can look to maybe move off of some of these rookie picks and get an upgrade at either running back or wide receiver. I don't inherently think that you need to be going like all in and you really need to be trying to just trade for veteran running backs, because realistically, we could use some extra wide receiver starters. Again, going back to the fact that this is going to be a start 10 league, you're starting 8 combined running backs and receivers. We have 7 of them. So even adding an additional starting wide receiver should be able to help us fill out the starting lineup for a contending build this next season. And if we go ahead and if we look at some of these teams that are rebuilders, those are going to be the main teams that we are wanting to try to trade with. This team at the very bottom, Allen a day's work. Really the only piece that could move the needle on their roster for us is going to be that Xavier Worthy level wide receiver. Now, if you're looking at the running backs here with Brian Robinson and DeAndre Swift, I would say that it's very difficult to project either running back to be like a guaranteed starter this next year, of course. But if you are sitting here with a deep league, which this is 12 team start 10, 1 quarterback format, so it's like a start 11 super flex, those running backs could be very useful, even if they're just like the Rachaad White mold, where worst case scenario, you go ahead and you use them as a bye week fill in, even if there's another running back in their backfield taking away touches, then whatever. Best case scenario, either one of Brian Robinson or DeAndre Swift end up dodging the NFL draft. No competition is added to their respective backfields, and you could actually view them as like a viable flex number 4 in a way, or viable depth in case something happens to Chase Brown, in case something happens to Kyren Williams. Now, of course, we would never go through and trade a first-round pick for either one of those assets, but when we begin to get to these second rounders and get to these third rounders, I mean, you could very easily see it make sense for this rebuilding team where on a rebuilding roster, they should have absolutely no use whatsoever, Brian Robinson. They should be trying to get anything they can for DeAndre Swift. So, I mean, if we could send them, say, like the 212, 303, the 312, and get a couple of these running backs back, I mean, maybe that's a little too aggressive. Maybe you're going to instead have to send the 209, 212, a couple thirds as well to bring in those 2 depth running backs. I don't necessarily see that being a downside play for you. Now, if you're making that trade before the NFL draft, you 100% need to be doing so at a discount, because of course, the other alternative for this team is you take that 209 and you trade it for a 2026 second and third. And then we wait until during the year, during the season, when we know what running backs are producing, we then try to go out there and cherry pick those teams that are struggling and having to pivot to a rebuild to go get veteran running backs off their roster. So if you were to address the running back position right now, which you don't have to do, we are looking to do so at a discount. If you can get DeAndre Swift for the 212, yes, I think that probably makes sense, and to take that risk of the NFL draft, because if he dodged the NFL draft, I think we can say DeAndre Swift confidently will be worth more than the 212. Now, we're not going out there and overpaying for those running backs now, because again, you could always just push these picks back to 2026 and buy certain guaranteed running back production during the year if we really needed it. Going over and looking at this next team. This team has Kamara, Aaron Jones at running back. A wide receiver, they have Addison as their wide receiver 1, Shakir and Sutton as their wide receivers 2 and 3. I would imagine that this team understands that they have to be a rebuilding roster. I mean, maybe they're sitting here thinking that they have some hope for something. But this would be another example of, hell, if you can get these veteran running backs at just absolute dirt cheap prices, or if you can send the 209, 212, 303, 307, 312, 412, just send every single one of these later picks that you have and see if we can bring in Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones, give this team a little bit more flexibility with the trades that they're able to make through the offseason. That's the lowball offer I'm sending out today. I'm going ahead and looking at this next squad. That squad probably looks like they can contend. This team is CMC, Garrett Wilson, Kittle, Stroud. They're probably contending, right? This team has Ladd, Derrick Henry, Kenneth Walker. They should be contending. This team has Quentin Johnston as their wide receiver 3. They have Travis Etienne as their RB2. Maybe this is another team where we can send that lowball offer for Chuba Hubbard. But the last thing I would do right now is go ahead and trade your 107, go ahead and trade your 109 to bring in a running back like Alvin Kamara. I mean, that would make absolutely no sense for us, even if we are that strong contender on paper. I think that you were in the position of strength because you have the cornerstone assets at wide receiver, where we have the longevity as well as the production this season. It all comes down to how we are solving that running back production hole that we may or may not have this next season. Honestly, maybe Chase Brown comes out as a top 5 running back. Maybe Kyren Williams is a running back 1 yet again for 3 straight seasons. Like, it is in the range of outcomes for your running backs to absolutely crush. So if you don't have other owners willing to go ahead and trade you DeAndre Swift for the 212, trade you Brian Robinson for the 209, and just send those dirt cheap prices, again, the backup alternative for this is to just push back your late rookie picks into 2026. That way you can go shopping for running backs during the season, just in case something happens to Chase Brown. Chase Brown rolls an ankle in week 4, then we can go ahead and we can look at a team that maybe thought that they were contending, and then all of a sudden they get a Ladd McConkey injury and they realize, crap, I need to pivot over to a rebuilder, and then you can send that 2026 second, third, fourth that we picked up and go pick up one of those running backs like Derrick Henry when that team's struggling for a rebuild halfway through the year. That's always on the table for these contending builds, where all you would possibly need is a short-term running back stopgap. The 107, the 109, you are still very much taking best player available. If the best player at that 107 is a Buka and you're bringing in another wide receiver, then cool. You can start up to 5 wide receivers. You can start up to 6 wide receivers in this league every week, and we really only have 4 to 5 startable guys right now. So that 107, that 109, again, taking best player available whether that's a running back, whether that's a wide receiver. If that ends up being a tight end, then of course we can explore the possibility of going through and maybe sending that 109 in a one quarterback format and getting a player like, of course, DJ Moore, but maybe even a little bit lessen like Chris Godwin. I think you can explore that possibility. But my plans for now on a juggernaut team like this is, I think really the only cheap production you have to buy is running back. But I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. Again, you have the best team in the league. There are really just 2 juggernaut teams in this league, and there's not much beyond that. So I'm not going to have much for you here, but I really hope I was able to help you out in some way. Now, let's move this over to our next team. This one's coming out from Jay Mazier. Long time member of the flock. I'm actually going to skip by this just real quick and answer the trade questions that we have. Takedown Tony says, I'd get his 2027 first. Okay. You'd also get his 2027. Okay. Ton of pieces moving here. My gut reaction is saying you're getting fleeced. But if you're getting the extra 2027 first, maybe it's okay. Let's run through this piece by piece. Right? And this is what typically I'm trying to do when we have a deal involving this many assets. What can we say is close to equivalent in value, and we can easily scratch them off the board? If you look at my rankings here attached to these players, I have Ricky Pearsall at 83 overall. I have the 112 at 81 overall. I think that those are very comparable assets, and I don't think that swap is really going to move the needle for us one way or another. I think we can take them out of this deal. We have Trey Benson ranked at 126 overall. We have the mid-second ranked at 123rd overall. So we have Benson worth a little bit less than the mid-second, but again, I don't know if the gap's large enough for them to be stopping this deal. So let's take out the mid-second. Let's take out Trey Benson. Looking at Breece Hall versus the 104. I have Breece and the 104 in a very similar range at this point. I have the 104, which could be Ted McMillan, could be Hampton, depending on landing spot. Maybe Judkins gets himself a great spot. Maybe Henderson gets him. Obviously, there's a wide range of players here, but the 104, you're going to get near the top end of that range when you know that landing spot. I think I can personally say that the 104 and Breece Hall are close enough in my rankings, 28-30, that maybe we can move them out of this deal. And once we're able to narrow it down like this, I think it becomes a hell of a lot more clear. Because for me, I would very easily prefer the 101 over Ladd McConkey and not even remotely close. Maybe we can say Keon Coleman's worth an early second, right? Let's take that out. And if we've been able to narrow it down this far, I would very easily prefer Ashton Jeanty over Ladd McConkey. I know that's going to be a hot take. Clearly, Ladd had an absolute phenomenal rookie season. And I would very easily prefer the 105 over David Montgomery in a 2027 first. So for me, if I'm looking at the 101, the 104, the 105, the 112, an early second, and a mid second, I'm probably going to prefer this side over Ladd McConkey, Breece Hall, David Montgomery, Sticky Ricky, Keon Coleman, Trey Benson. Now, looking at the team that we are sitting with at the moment, if this is our squad where Marshawn Lloyd and Will Shipley are our current running backs, does going through and trading for these guys like Ladd and Breece Hall turn us into a contending build? No. I don't think so. I don't know if that's going to be enough. I would rather just take the rookies here, to be completely honest with you. If you wanted to maybe try to come up with a more fair deal, like, let me just get rid of this. If we wanted to come up with something that was a little more interesting, if we were able to keep the second rounders, maybe you can make an argument that that swings it enough. Because then at that point, if you're looking at it, say, the 104 versus Breece, but then, I mean, what are you really getting here? Trading the 101, the 105, the 112. Say the 112 is worth the 2027 first. So let's just get that out of here, right? And say you're not getting the 2027 first. Just sorry. When there are so many pieces like this, it's really hard to, like, objectively look at the trade. Can y'all please let me know in the live chat, what side of this are you going to prefer with how it's sitting right now? Because even still then, I would almost consider the rookie picks. But if you wanted to go get the veterans, I think that this probably looks like a better deal. And Trace Rod says, why do you stop doing videos during the season? My friend, we uploaded hundreds of videos during the season. If you were talking about week 17, on the day of Christmas, I live streamed and we gave you rankings during a live stream. Maybe we didn't do an edited video. That way the editor could spend Christmas with his family. So I could spend Christmas with my family. But yeah, all in all, I think the rookie picks is going to be the side here. I don't necessarily think that you're getting enough value when it comes to the veterans. Now, Codename Kid Next Door says, question about refund. Shoot me a message on Discord, my friend, because I can't see this here. If you sent this team, we'll make sure we're not looking at that team for you. Now, Tony coming through with the trade. CJ Stroud versus Caleb Williams. If this is it, I think it is a personal preference type ordeal. I have Stroud and Caleb ranked back-to-back, QB7, QB8, 64, and 65 overall in a one quarterback format. Let me go ahead and pull up where their redraft ADP is at the moment. But my thought process is Chicago makes significant investments into the offensive line. This next year, you are getting Rome Odunze going into year 2. Caleb Williams does give you a little more rushing upside than what you're going to be getting with CJ Stroud. I'm going over and let me see where they're getting drafted on Underdog, which obviously isn't everything, but QB10 for Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud's at QB17. So there's a pretty big gap with expectations this next year from the redraft community with Caleb over Stroud. I think Stroud's rookie season obviously was a lot better than Caleb's, but specifically for fantasy purposes with the situations that they have going into this next year and the rushing upside that you're going to get with Caleb, I think we're going to go Caleb. Now, James Ear says, first off, thank you. If y'all don't know, James Ear, long-time member of the flock, won the championship last year. Can't seem to trade any of my 5 quarterbacks for wide receivers, running backs. Which quarterbacks would you suggest trading? What areas of need should player should I target? Should we hold on to our 2026 first? That team's first is fading fast. Could be a top 3 to 4 pick. And is Jaden Reed a wide receiver 2? Thanks. Thank you. Okay. So couple different things here. It's going to be a 12-team league. So I'd imagine that there should be some type of trade market for these quarterbacks. It's not going to be a 10-team Superflex league. In terms of holding on to our 2026 first, I would say 9 times out of 10, yes. Because if you are trading away your 2026 first, you are really putting yourself in a compromising position where if the wheels fall off, if you get an injury at the beginning of the year, you may turn from a contending team to a rebuilding team where you don't have your first and you really have no flexibility whatsoever. So if I'm ever trading future first round picks, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be during the season. It's going to be when I can confirm that I'm a contending roster and I can confirm that, hell, I'm not going to need to be able to pull the ripcord and possibly go for the 101. Now, with that being said, there are 2 juggernaut teams in this league, and it looks like we are one of them. So possibly, just possibly, we can actually trade away our 2026 first. But you're saying, is Jaden Reed a wide receiver 2? Jaden Reed's not a wide receiver 2 in my mind. Like Jaden Reed actually got worse from year 1 to year 2, despite the situation being set up perfectly for him. Now, with all this being said, we are the 2nd team in the league analyzer. And actually, that 2026 first round pick that we have, it's not even our own. When we have somebody else's 2026 first round pick, we have already pulled the ripcord. We have no shot to be able to pivot over to a rebuild ourselves. And instead, we are locked and loaded into a contending build. Now, the interesting thing here is a lot of the value from this team is driven up by the quarterback position of what we have. The team's still great. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, we are sitting with Allen, Kyler, McCarthy, Bryce Young, and Sam Darnold. So the plan A, of course, this goes without being said. You're saying you're having a very hard time trading away these quarterbacks as is. But the plan A is to trade away a quarterback, right? Let me just go through and see if we can throw out some feelers, even if you're saying it's extremely difficult. The issue is going to be like, if we look at this team down here, right? They may be sitting in a situation where they're like, okay, well, George Pickens, my wide receiver 3, John is my top tight end, Walker, Montgomery are my top running backs, Derek Carr is my QB2. Maybe they can push to contend if they get an extra quarterback, but by no means is it a guarantee, right? So if I was this roster, last thing I'm going to want to do is go out there and trade for Sam Darnold when I don't even know if I'm going to be trying to win this season. So I can see why that would be a difficult trade partner to have. This team has Baker and then the Colts quarterbacks, but similar to the other one, this team's tight end 1's Kyle Pitts. This team's top wide receivers are Zay Flowers, Deebo Samuel. A rebuilding roster is not really going to be running out there to trade for a quarterback. This team has 3 starting quarterbacks, and at the same time, their wide receiver 1 is Tank Dell. So, I mean, this is definitely a roster in which we should probably be trying to target a piece that can help us win right now. Whereas we shouldn't necessarily be trying to sell them a quarterback. Like if we could sell, say, that 2026 first, if you can convince that this owner that 2026 first is going to be a top 3 pick, and if you can get Breece Hall off his team, I think that's a move that's actually worth making now if you can get that kind of value. This team has Rodgers, Stafford as QB2, QB3. This team has Lawrence, Michael Penix as their top quarterbacks, but again, their running back 2 is ETN. Their top tight end Tucker Kraft. Their top receivers are Worthy, Addison, Waddle. They may not be contending. Now, if you're having a difficult time going through and trading your quarterbacks for players straight up, an option that you can always try doing is trying to swap them just for rookie picks. Like going ahead and seeing if we can send maybe McCarthy and get back this team's, my initial offer would be the 105 with the expectations that they probably reject, and see if we can send McCarthy and get back like the 108 and the 208, right? Because in that instance, you give them their solid quarterback core. Maybe they care about the stack with Addison. Maybe they're a Vikings fan. And we get that 108 to have a lot more flexibility where even if you don't want to be taking a rookie there, you're still able to turn around and you're still actually able to trade it for a running back, trade it for a wide receiver, because everybody's going to be trading for a rookie pick. So I think if you're having a hard time trading quarterbacks for running backs, wide receivers, I would just look for the picks instead. This team here chasing the cup, this is the team's first round pick that you have. They have Burrow 2 at quarterback. Running back, they have Henry Kamara. Nothing beyond that. Wide receiver, this team's dust. This team better. Oh my gosh. This team, they should be tanking and bearing it down right now. They have no assets. Their wide receiver 3 is Kupp. Their running back 3 is Justice Hill. They have some interesting pieces at the very top, but this team is an injury away from just getting a bottom 3 finish in the league. So unless somebody's going to overpay for that 2026 first that you have of this team's, like if you could trade that first for Breece Hall, then sure, do it. I agree with you. I think you probably want to hold on to the pick. But yeah, they're not a suitor for a quarterback. This team only has Lamar, and this team at the same time, I mean, maybe they think that they can go ahead and contend. The issue is they have no running backs whatsoever. One possibility of what you could look to do is if you could almost, in a way, tier up at quarterback by giving the quantity for quality. Like, let me pull up the trade calculator right now and see how far off I am with this thing I'm about to say, as I have a feeling this trade may get laughed out of the building. So, this is the trade calculator on the site. Of course, you're not already on the site, flockfantasy.com. And let's see this. They receive Kyler, Young, McCarthy, and we receive Lamar. How far off is this? Yeah, it's saying we win. Is there any shot that this trade happens? Just going ahead and looking at this roster, it's a rebuilding team that their quarterback 2 is Joshua Dobbs. If you could potentially send them that trio of quarterbacks to solve their quarterback need, while at the same time giving us Lamar Jackson, the true difference-making option for a contending build, I would send that out there and just see what they say. Can y'all please let me know in the live chat, do you think this trade offer gets laughed out of the building? Trade calculator on the site saying Lamar's side clearly wins. But is this deal getting laughed out of the building for a team that is rebuilding and only has Lamar? See, is there any other... This team only has Stroud. Maybe a similar trade that we can try is packing together Kyler and like Young to get to Stroud. See how far off this is. It's saying that this is actually close, but this is using the expert ranks. I have Stroud ranked higher personally. Yeah. In my rankings, this is a fair deal. If you could maybe tier up, send Kyler and Young to go get CJ Stroud if you perceive that as an upgrade. But I think that there are only two real ways I can see you getting off these quarterbacks. Because if you're looking at like trading Darnold's, whoever's going to buy Darnold needs to be a contender. Looking at the contending teams in this league, hell, they don't really need quarterbacks. So I think you either need to be trying to send like the McCarthy or the Bryce Young range to try to go get a rookie pick. And we can flip that rookie pick for a running back or a wide receiver. Or you need to try to tier up by that Kyler, McCarthy, Young to go get to Lamar. Or that Kyler and Young to go get to Stroud. But people in the chat are saying that they would actually consider the Lamar deal. So I think you would send that out there. Looking at the running, everything else on this team's great, right? Looking at running back, you're a contending build. It makes sense for you to have Bijan, Taylor, Pollard, Aaron Jones. Like you want that running back depth. Wide receiver, we have the cornerstone pieces of Puka, London. We have quality depth in a start 10 Superflex league of Higgins, Reed. We have Andrews at tight end. So yeah, we could use another wide receiver. We could use another running back. But if you're telling me that you are having a difficult time trading a quarterback for those positions straight up, which I've experienced the same exact thing in a Superflex league, really the only time you're going to have a super, super easy time doing so is if it's like a 14 or a 16 team league. I would try to tier up a quarterback or send a quarterback for a rookie pick instead, and then you can address that running back or wide receiver depth there. And again, that 2026 first, if you're going to approach one of those teams that looks like they need to be rebuilding, like the Breece Hall owner, and say, hey, I'll give you this 2026 first that looks to be a top 3 pick for Breece Hall, do it. But obviously only trade that pick if whoever you're trading with is in agreement that that's going to be a top 3 pick and they're willing to give you the value that is in line with that. Now let's move this over to Sean YT. It says, hey Mason, looking for general advice on what we should do with the team. I have the 101 and my running back room is pretty weak, so thinking of picking Genty. I'm hoping either Tyler Warren or Loveland fall to me at the 201 to solve the tight end issue. Thanks for the amazing content. Thank you, my guy. Really do appreciate you and excited to check this out. We are Taxi Driver. We are right in the middle of the league with the league analyzer, but it does look like there's a pretty big drop off in terms of the value from us and the next team there at 6. This is going to be a super flex 10 team start 10 format. So there's definitely the need to go after those top end assets, specifically because it is a 10 teamer and not a 12 teamer. Looking at this roster, a whole lot of red, right? We've got a whole lot of junk, and we have some gems there with Allen and Lamb. Starting it off with the quarterback room, Josh Allen gives this roster a whole lot of flexibility. Without Josh Allen, my friend, you would be cooked like a Thanksgiving turkey. I mean, it would be very ugly. But having Allen, Lawrence, Geno does give you a really nice quarterback room that we're able to contend with, that we don't really have to stress about. And yeah, there's not much to discuss with this QB room. It's a 10-team league, so if we ever really needed to go out there and trade for another quarterback, it honestly should be super easy unless it's one of those top guys like Allen, which obviously are going to demand the premium no matter what the league size is. Going over and looking at what we have at running back, we have the 101, so bringing in Genty, the same thing as having Josh Allen. It gives us a lot of flexibility here. Having Ashton Genty, and then after that, a combo of Connor, Tracy, Charbonnet, ETN, Bigsby. Don't know exactly who we're starting at running back 2, running back 3 this next year. I'd imagine it's James, Connor, and Tyrone Tracy, but it is up in the air as of now. Regardless, it is a running back room that once we add in Ashton Genty, we can probably contend with. Are we the strongest team in the league? Of course not, but we will have some upside with Genty in here. Going over and looking at wide receiver, your wide receiver room's garbage. Just to be completely honest, like the depth here is disgusting. Like I almost think once we take Ashton Genty, our running back room is going to be better than our wide receiver room. His wide receiver will also have the top end stud. We'll also have CeeDee Lamb here, which is super exciting. But beyond that, we are sitting with Devonta Smith, who in a 12-team league, have him as my wide receiver 2. I'd be excited about. 10-team league, he's more of a wide receiver 3 if you're a contender. Obviously, we are assuming you were trying to win this year. Keon Coleman is my wide receiver 3 in a 10-team league. We're cooked. Darnell Mooney, my wide receiver 4 in a 10-team league. We're cooked. We got nobody outside of that either. Going over to tight end, we're not sitting pretty. We got Evan Ingram. I mean, yes, we could. Evan Ingram finds himself a decent little landing spot in Denver, but still, I don't necessarily know if we can rely on him. I know you're saying you want to bring in a rookie tight end at the 201. I honestly think you should have a decent shot at doing so. The main thing is, I don't think that this team should be making any plays to try to contend this season. I'm not telling you to rebuild right now, but there's a very real world, right? Where you take Ashton Genty at 1, you take Loveland at the 201. Let's just say Loveland, as most rookie tight ends, doesn't make an impact year 1. I think that is a strong possibility. And what happens if Lamb gets injured, Allen gets injured, or Genty gets injured? One of our 3 real players. Then all of a sudden, you are so far behind the 8 ball that if you were to have positioned yourself in a way that we needed to rely on 2025 as our year to contend, I don't think you have the depth to really survive it. And I think you are crushed and you're screwed not only for 2025, but also whatever future you mortgaged as well. Now, on the flip side of this, there's very much a possibility that this team contends. Like Devonta Smith could be a top 15 wide receiver. Ashton Genty could be a top 3 running back. James Conner could be a top 10 RB. Maybe Evan Ingram is serviceable in Denver. Maybe whatever rookie tight end you take at the 201 hits. So my thing is, I think with this roster, you just kind of have to stay flexible and you have to let the beginning of the season kind of dictate which direction we go in. And with that in mind of like staying flexible, specifically with your rookie picks, so the 101, 201, 301, 401, I'm not trading these picks for veterans. Now, of course, if you can get some crazy value, if you can go ahead and send the 301, which should be pick 21, which is really equivalent to what, like the 209 in a 12-teamer. If you can send that for like Devontae Adams, then cool. Well, we'll do it, right? We'll do it and we'll position ourselves in a way in which maybe we can contend this next season. But I don't necessarily think we want to be going out of our way and trying to make that move right now. With those picks, I think you take rookies that can help you contend right now if things break right, or also will have that insulated value going into year 2, like Ashton Genty, like Loveland. If there are any trades to be made with this team, I don't particularly like what extra value do we have? That's the thing. Clearly, if you were pivoting over to a rebuild, we're immediately trying to go to some of these contending rosters and tell this team, hey, do you want James Conner? James Conner could possibly help you contend. Give me the 205 in your 2026 second. But we want to keep James Conner just in case we can contend at the beginning of the season. It's not like we're overloaded with running back depth or wide receiver depth and we can move positionally. I mean, I can give you player takes. I can tell you I'm not a fan of Tyrone Tracy. Like, let me go ahead and pull up where Tracy is in this. Well, let's actually go to the trade finder and see if we can find anything for you here with Tracy. You're playing in a 10-team league, super flex. So Tracy. Yeah, and you can see as well, I am much lower on Tracy than the rest of the people making rankings on the site. Like, oh, this would just be a dream if you're able to trade Tracy and Jennings for the 106. But then also, I can't say, oh yeah, trade Tyrone Tracy, and then somebody traded Tyrone Tracy for a Christian Kirk in the 312 or Evan Ingram straight up. Let me see where he is just generally with the rankings. So just in case, I'm sure everybody watching this knows. The rankings on the site are going to be an average of everybody here. You can always just go and select my rankings themselves if you wanted. But anyway, the average experts, Tracy's at 96, running back 18. What you could, the thing is, like, you still kind of need running back depth. Like, I mean, I would say that if you could trade Tracy and get like Jaden Reed, get Jerry Jeudy, get some of these assets that are quality wide receiver depth pieces that you're not going to see their value plummet in 2026 if we have to pivot over to a rebuild. I think that would be interesting. Just sending out feelers. Tracy for Reed. Tracy for Pickens. Let's go through and let's look at what teams could potentially use a running back. Another issue is teams that could use a running back that are contending are going to be hard to find. Actually, this team has Jaden Reed. They have plenty of wide receiver depth. They have London, Harrison, Jameson, Terry, Debo, Johnston, and running back 3, they have Trey Benson. So, I mean, I would send out a feeler, see if you could flip Tracy for Reed. This team's running back 3 is Stevenson. If you can flip Tracy, and you're not going to be able to get Flowers, of course. If you could, you would. But structurally, I don't know if there's much for you to do with this team right now other than take Genty and then whatever player you like at the 201. Honestly, even if it's not a tight end, I'd be fine with you taking like Egbuka there if you see a wide receiver that you like falling. Once you take Genty, I think wide receiver depth is going to be weaker than anywhere else on your position, to be completely honest, after the rookie draft. And I would imagine that the team probably ends up rebuilding, but I think it's good enough to the point where you don't need to be looking to make rebuilding trades right this second. But I really appreciate you. I wish I had more for you, to be honest. Alfredo, long-time member of the flock, decided to check this out. This is Juggernaut team, 2 Juggernaut teams in this league. There's Fleming and Alfredo, and everybody else looks to be competing for third. Here with Alfredo, it is a 1 quarterback, 12 team start 10 full PPR format. So here, wide receiver and running back depth is going to matter a considerable amount. Again, it's a non-tight end premium league. So with those league settings, you're going to be in a situation in which you're not really ever looking to go ahead and the start a tight end in the flex. So we can just kind of assume that you're going to have to start 8 wide receivers and running backs weekly. With how things sit right now, we have Gibbs, Chase, Puka, Harrison, Evans. We have 5 guys that we can start out of the 8. That's before any buys. That's before any injuries. So you got moves to make. If it was a 10-team league, I think it'd be a lot easier to address the depth. But here it's a 12-teamer. The 103, we can just assume that we're grabbing a running back there. But to be completely honest with you, at that 103, while we definitely need a running back, I mean, our RB2 is Trey Benson. Our RB3 is Tyler Algier. I think anything's in play because, again, going back to it, fact of the matter is you have to start 8 total players across running back and wide receiver. So whether you add in Hampton, whether you add in Tet McMillan, frankly, it doesn't matter. You just got to start somebody. Like adding another wide receiver to your team, while yes, wide receiver is already much, much stronger than running back. I mean, you need somebody. You're drafting a flex play anyway. You know, you just need somebody to throw in there. So I know initial gut reaction would be to say that we need to go ahead and we need to possibly trade the 103 for a running back or take a running back at the 103. I think you need to add about 2 running back starters, and I think you need to add about 2 wide receiver starters or 4 running back starters. You can need to add 4 starters, 2 of which probably need to be running back. But if you had 2 wide receiver starters in the meantime, you're going to be solving issues regardless. Now, good thing for us is, considering the discrepancy of value in this league, I would assume that there should be a decent amount of teams looking to rebuild where we could go ahead and maybe we can tear down from this 103. We can trade the 103, get back a later pick, while at the same time get back a veteran that's going to help us produce. Going ahead and looking at some of these teams that probably are going to be in a position where they need to rebuild. This team next year in 2026, when Tyreek, Kamara, Jones, Kelsey are all pretty much Dunskies, they're going to be toast, but maybe they're trying to run it back one more year. This team is Calvin Ridley, their wide receiver 3, Chris Godwin, Cortland Sutton, their wide receivers 1, 2, and 3. Issue is they don't have their 2026 first, right? So I would approach this roster and feel them out, see if they think that they are a contender. If they are, pass them by. Maybe we revisit in week 4 when they're 1-3. But this is a team here that I'd imagine probably has to smell the roses, face the music, whatever you want to say, and they probably have to realize that they're needing to hit that rebuild button. Their wide receiver 2 is Josh Downs. Their wide receiver 3 is Xavier Legette. Their running back 2 is DeAndre Swift. And good thing for us, they have some of these contending pieces that actually could move the needle for us. Looking at our roster in particular, what do we need? We just need running back and wide receiver starters. They are sitting here with Derrick Henry as a clear running back starter for us. Adding him in would be an absolute no-brainer. Would we be willing to trade the 103? Hell no. But for your team, I think you can confidently trade the 205 and see if we can add in Derrick Henry, right? You trade that 205 for a 1-year spot start, whether that's for a flex or whether that's for a running back. I think it's going to move the needle for you in a way that doesn't cost too much in the long term. Of course, we can try to maybe send them additional picks at the same time, like where they're sitting there with DeAndre Swift. If we can send them the 205, 212, 305, 405, and get back their 2 running backs, and then effectively be able to have 2 extra starters here where we're trying to fill out those 8 spots. Right now we have 5. That brings us to 7. We still have the 103, where with the 103, you can potentially trade back. We can potentially draft a rookie there that we would be able to start regardless. I think that's the first thing I do right now. Send out a low ball feeler for those veteran running backs from this Seth team that looks like they need to rebuild. This team here is sitting with the 104, but their running back 1 is Tank Bigsby. Their running back 2 is Jalen Wright, right? This team is going to have to rebuild. Their wide receiver 4 is Christian Kirk. In terms of assets that I would be looking to sell if I was a rebuilding roster that we should be putting out feelers for, DK Metcalf is on that list. Now, of course, DK Metcalf, I mean, hell, he's not a running back. I understand that we need a running back starter, but going right back to what we were talking about previously, not only do we need a running back starter, we need wide receiver starters. We just need starters. We need depth. So going ahead, and if we can trade the 205, 212 and get DK Metcalf in, no brainer. I'd send out that feeler. It does get accepted. Probably not, but can't hurt to try it. This team looks like they are going to be a contender. This team, their running back 1's ETN, their running back 2's Ray Davis. However, they are going to be able to bring in Ash and Genty, so maybe they do have a shot to contend. Nonetheless, I think what you could actually do with this roster is see if we can send that 103 if they are deciding that they are going to be a rebuilding team, and see if we can bring in T. Higgins. Now, this isn't exactly going to help our running back situation, but going right back to what we were talking about previously, adding another starting wide receiver is going to actually help us out a ton as well. And again, this is another team that if we can convince them to hit that rebuild, maybe they're also willing to look at some of these other veteran assets, such as Travis Etienne. And if we sell the 103 for Higgins, maybe we can also throw in one of those second rounders for Etienne just to bring us in a running back depth piece that we could potentially throw in a flex. These teams look like they are going to be a contending builds. Yeah. Now, let's go ahead and see if there's anything else that we can do in terms of rosters that have plenty of depth, even if they are contenders. This team looks like they're a contender, but is there a way in which we can get multiple starters in return by giving them a top end piece, tiered down, and manage to pick up some extra starters? So they have Kyron, Chuba, Mixon, Montgomery, Tracy, St. Brown, DJ Moore, and Deebo Samuel. Rookie picks wise, they're not sitting with much. Honestly, in a deeper league like this, I actually may not hate the idea of sending one of our top wide receivers, such as Jamar Chase, and picking up a tier 2 level option like Amon-Ra St. Brown, if it can net us a couple extra starters, such as DJ Moore and maybe David Montgomery. Let me see how far off that would be. Let me pull up the trade calculator real quick. Sorry. They received Chase, and we are going to change this to a 1 quarterback league. Sorry about that. Okay. They receive Jamar Chase. We receive Amon-Ra St. Brown and DJ Moore. How far off are we here? Saying we can get a little more value out of them. If we are looking for an additional starter, maybe we can actually squeeze out Chuba Hubbard. Can y'all please let me know in the chat, what side would y'all rather have here? In a vacuum, and then obviously we can apply it to this team that probably needs a little bit more depth than anything. But would y'all rather have Jamar Chase or Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Moore, and Chuba Hubbard? Because if you were able to make this swing, you pick up 2 additional starters. Points per game drop off from Chase to St. Brown. Going to be 2 to 3 points. You have the runway, probably 2 to 3 years with DJ Moore. My initial offer would probably be this. If we could send Puka Nacua for Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Moore, the issue is I just don't necessarily think that they accept that. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's see if there are any other teams that have plenty of depth that we can do that tier down deal with. It's the team we just looked at. This team has no depth. This team has some depth, right? They have Barkley, Brown, CMC, Najee, Charbonnet. Wide receiver depth is going to be a little bit shaky. In terms of a tier down that we can work out here, the difficulty of this is going to be they don't really have the assets to be able to get up to Chase. They don't really have the assets to be able to get up to Puka. They have the 109. One thing we can maybe do here is see if we could send them the 103, get back the 109, and a meaningful veteran. Even some of these players that... Actually, not Chase Brown. Sorry. Chase Brown's too out of a tier. I was thinking Sharp. Even if it's some of these players that don't look like they move the needle in a big-time way, if we can just get this little package of depth. How far off? Am I losing my mind here? It's saying we win. I don't think we're going to be able to get this done. I would send something like this, and if they come back with us and they want to keep Brandon Ayuk, maybe instead I would say, okay, well, cool. Give me your late seconds. Just that way we're able to pick up additional starters. Because that's the main thing. That's the main thing you're having to do with this team. I know we've talked about a lot here, but I think the plan is you take your later round rookie picks, try to move them for cheap veterans at a discount if we're able to. And then also if you could tier down from that 103 and possibly get a couple assets that are really going to be able to help us fill out the depth we need with that team, I think that could be interesting. But I really do appreciate you and hope I was able to help you out. Let me refresh this real quick, just see in case we have any trade questions or super messages come in. No, they have not. Okay, perfect. Now, Silver Splash, for whatever reason, this is not loading up. Let me see. Says, really could use help on who to target in this draft. Would love to get a tight end plus running back depth, but I think Golden and or Igbuka is going to fall to the 110. We have the 110, 203, 206, 207, 209. In 2026, we have all of our picks plus 3 seconds. And in future years, I will say real quick, and this is just a general thing. I can go full screen for this. If you are trading away 2029 picks right now, if your league allows people to trade away 2029 picks, and they are not collecting dues for that year when those people trade away those picks, your league's probably not going to last. Now, maybe you know your league better than I do, but that is a recipe for disaster. Disaster, disaster, disaster. Okay. But anyway, we have future draft capital. We have all our picks, so we have a lot of flexibility. Now, this is a very shallow format, if I'm looking at this correctly. This is a 10-team start 7 half PPR. So in a league like this, it's going to be stupid simple. Every deal we make, we want to be sending 2 players for 1. Every deal we make, we want to be sending 3 players for 1. We want to be trying to get the best player in return. Stupid simple. And real quick, let me also hook you up with, I'm going to send you 2 free trade questions, because I think we're actually going to have a couple trades with this that you want to follow up on. And I'll send you a couple free start set questions as well for during the season. You'd have a bunch of vouchers in your account. But anyway, quarterback, we're sitting with Lamar. Nothing to really discuss, right? Perfect spot. It's a shallow enough league where the last thing I'm doing, especially if this league's trading 2029 picks, is considering 4 or 5 years out in advance. Like, we know Lamar's going to be a top 3 quarterback in fantasy this year, if healthy. We can say the same thing about next year. We can probably say the same thing about the year after that. Quarterback, we're in a phenomenal situation. We don't necessarily have to stress about anything here. Going over to running back, we are sitting with Bucky Bijan. So we have 2 top 5 running backs in Dynasty, or at least Bucky on the borderline. Bijan, top 3 option. We have depth with Warren Pacheco. We had the handcuff with Algier behind Bijan. So running back room, phenomenal. We have running back ones on their rookie deals. Wide receiver, we have 2 top 5 receivers with Neighbors Lamb. We have Rome Waddle. So we have elite wide receivers, and we have plenty of depth at the same time. Tight end's really the only spot where you can say that we have a question mark here in this league. And again, going back to the capital that you said we have the 110, 203, 206, 207, 209. In a shallower format like this, where you are so strong at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, for whatever reason, the power rankings aren't loading in ESPN leagues at the moment, but if they were to, we should be number 1 in this league by a country mile. This is a juggernaut squad. I think you can very easily afford to go out of your way and try to trade for an elite level tight end. Like, let's go ahead and let's try to just look at team by team here. This team has Travis Etienne as their RB2. Their wide receiver 1, Rashee Rice, don't know the suspension or injury situation this next year. This team very easily, their name is tank mode. If we can send them rookie picks to go get Sam Laporta, I would absolutely love to. If we can take that 110, 203, 206, give them our top 3 picks in this draft and go get Laporta. I mean, keep in mind that 203 is 2 picks higher in a 12-teamer. Same thing with that 206. And if we can go get Sam Laporta, I think it'd make a ton of sense. Going ahead, that team doesn't have anybody at tight ends. This team is Kittle, but they also have Jefferson, Adams, Reed, Sutton, Derrick Henry. This team's definitely contending. This team Goddard. We are on juggernaut team like this. We're just really wanting to trade for the best. This team has Bowers, Chase, Flowers, Jameson, Taylor, Kyron. So this team's contending. Team is Kelsey. If you want to send a second rounder for Kelsey, I think you'd be completely fine to do so. Because another thing is, in a league like this, those second rounders are going to be a little bit less important, because the odds that that second round pick actually moves the needle and makes a difference in your specific situation is going to be a lot lower. Just because the bar for any one individual player to actually move the needle for your roster is extremely high. I don't want to even be taking like a wide receiver at the 110. I don't see the point in doing so. You take Golden, in what world are we starting him over Lamb, Neighbors, Waddle, or even Rome? Like, I would almost rather take that 110. Again, I think plan A is to trade it for a tight end. Plan B is to take a tight end like Loveland or Warren there. Or plan C is to try to do a 2-for-1 tier up, take that 110 and Jalen Waddle, and go trade for the best wide receiver you can. But I don't know if just taking a rookie wide receiver, like a rookie depth receiver on a team that's as strong as yours in a league that's as shallow as yours, moves the needle enough. So I think that there are a lot of trades that are possible for your roster. Again, I hooked you up with a bunch of free trade questions and start set questions, so you should have a bunch of vouchers in your account. So please, if you put out some of those feelers that we talked about and get some counters coming your way, shoot me those trade questions. I'd be super happy to look at them. But again, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. And let's move this over for Betty. And let me hook you up with a free start set question and a free trade question as well. It says, took a big swing with A.J. Brown, paid heavy, scored the second most points, and had the third worst record due to points against. We're looking to retool, thinking of upgrading at running back and maybe move off of A.J. Brown to get max value. Same with the Laporta to down tier and to accrue another asset. And then Fields trade with both QBs want to compete bad. Okay. So this is the second team in the league analyzer. Pretty even league, but we definitely have a strong roster. This is going to be a start 8, 14 team half PPR format. So here's start 8 super flex league. Quarterbacks are going to be absolute gold. Again, you do the math in a 14 team super flex league where everybody wants to have 3 starters. If everybody's able to get to 2 starting quarterbacks, which won't be the case, there will only be 6 starters left over for a third quarterback. And then, of course, we've seen over the past few years how many quarterback injuries that there have been. Not to mention also the fact that if you are in only a start 8 format where you don't have to start a ton of running backs and receivers, quarterbacks are going to make up 25% of your starting lineup requirements. They should make up about 40% of your production from a week-to-week perspective. So having Allen and Jalen Hurts puts you in a position in which almost nothing else matters. You should be able to go ahead and you should be able to contend. Now, of course, I'd love to get a third quarterback here, but not going to be the main thing. Now, going over and looking at what we have at running back, we are currently sitting with James Cook, Tank Bigsby. So we are on the struggle bus. James Cook in a 14-team league, we can kind of confidently say he should be a running back 1. Looking at the depth beyond this, though, it's very difficult to be confident with Bigsby, difficult to be confident with Ray Davis or any of these names. So completely agree. I think that you probably want to be bringing in a running back. 14-team league as well. There should be very clearly rosters that are completely out of it that have no shot to contend. Like this team here sitting with the least amount of value. If you could send them that 113 and get back CMC, if they're willing to go ahead and pivot over to rebuilds, let's go for it. Is you're able to say we send that 113, we get CMC. We're rolling into this next year with Allen, Hurts, James Cook, CMC, A.J. Brown, Shakir, Laporta, and then maybe Keon Coleman's our next starter. But then we still have the 201, 206, 213. We don't have our own 2026 first either. So when we don't have our 2026 first, there's no reason for you to sell, A.J. Brown here. I'm sorry. I know you said you want to, but I see no reason to sell A.J. Brown. I see no reason to sell Sam Laporta. I think they fit your roster great. In my mind, the clear move to make is just to add in veterans at running back and wide receiver and push to win in 2025. I know it's maybe frustrating with us having such a bad record last year, but if we scored the second most points, you are right there. Going ahead and looking at some of these teams that are rebuilding that we can pick assets off of. Again, the 113, and hell, throw them a bone. Give them the 113 and the 201 for CMC and Ramadre. Have 2 additional running back starters. This team has Russ as their second quarterback. Javonte as their second running back. The issue, again, is we're more so wanting to go after the depth. Like for us to trade for Breece Hall in a 14-teamer where the depth is hard to come by, we probably don't have the firepower to get that done. So Breece is probably unobtainable. I'd say the same thing about Higgins and Rome there as well. This team, London, Harrison, Jacobs, Mixon, they're probably contending, right? This team has Addison as their wide receiver 2, Johnson as their wide receiver 3, Geno is their QB2. I mean, we can throw out a feeler here and see what this team's thought is in terms of if they are a rebuilder or a contender. Just bringing in a player like Jordan Addison really could make a difference for us in a 14-team format like this, where we just kind of need additional starters. Where if you can send that 113 and get in Jordan Addison, this team's going to be contending. This team's wide receiver 2 is Jaden Reed. Their wide receiver 3 is Sutton. I'd assume that this is a rebuilding roster where maybe, again, we circle back to that like CMC type trade. We send a couple second rounders. We get Aaron Jones and Jalen Warren for the depth in here. This team's Tracy RB2. This team's probably contender in a 14-teamer. But for me, again, like what's the reasoning in going through and selling A.J. Brown? We sell A.J. Brown, we're going to have to find a team that's contending. If you wanted to go that direction, this team's not going to be buying A.J. Brown. And you have to find a team that's contending with plenty of depth and willing to give it up. Because if you're making a trade in this format, it is going to be a 1-for-2 tear down. Looking at the contending builds. I mean, a side note here, which again, this is what I think makes more sense for you, is going through kind of hitting the rebuild button. Trading, I mean, not the rebuild button, sending those rookie picks to the teams that have hit the rebuild button, sending them a couple second rounders. Send a couple second rounders to get Brian Robinson and Travis Etienne on your roster. This is maybe a team that could be a candidate to trade for A.J. Brown. But like, what's the deal here with A.J. Brown? You send them A.J. Brown, they give you back Waddle, Walker, and the 114. The thing is, do we need the depth that badly? If it was a start 10 league, yes, but it's a start 8 format. We're starting Allen, Hurts, James Cook, A.J. Brown, Shakir, Laporta right now confidently. We just kind of need 2 extra starters in here. And we have 113, 201, 206, 213, 304, 4. We have rookie picks that we can deal. It just makes so much more sense for you to push in and contend with this strong of a team, specifically with what we have a quarterback putting us far ahead of the rest of the league, given your league settings. And by trading a couple of these second rounders to go get them. And again, here are the teams down at the bottom that we'd be looking to go through and make those deals with. The Breece Hall team didn't make much sense, but that CMC team, I think, would be a great trade candidate. Where's that next trade candidate? That would be the team that trades for A.J. Brown. This team, the spooning leads to forking, would be a good trade candidate. Here, Natty Daddy going after like Chuba Hubbard could be interesting. That team's going to be a contender. That would be an A.J. Brown team. And again, going and sending some seconds for like Brian Robinson and Etienne. Like that's what I think you should be doing with this team, to be completely honest. But I really appreciate you. And I really hope I was able to help you out in some way. Again, I hooked you up with free. I'm going to hook you up with another free trade question. You should have a bunch of free vouchers sitting on your account. So if you get anybody reaching back out to you and sends you a counter to some of those deals that we talked about, I'd be super happy to look at it for you. But let me go ahead and refresh just in case we have any time sensitive questions, whether that's trades, whether that's super messages. No, we do not. I see S in the live chat asking how to send teams in. Just in case you don't know, you can always hit the personal advice button in the top right corner of the site. And then just hit team review, link a team. You can link a sleeper, ESPN or Yahoo team. I know everybody's playing on sleep right now with Dynasty. And then you go ahead and you hit continue. It's not going to let me because we don't have our team linked at the moment. And then you just select myself and you can set it in there. But bunch of stuff on the site. Most of the stuff on the site is free. We'd love for you to check it out. We're working tirelessly. Big reason why we don't have as much videos out at the moment as we have in years past is because we are working our butts off to try to get you as many valuable things on that side as possible. So I really appreciate you. And I'll probably be live again. Girlfriend's parents are coming into town this weekend. I know. The in-laws. I think they leave on Tuesday. That's what the girlfriend said. Hopefully she's wrong. Hopefully they leave on Monday. If they leave on Monday, we're streaming Monday. If they leave on Tuesday, we're streaming Tuesday. But the second that they're out of here, I'll be streaming. But they have to stay in this room. So I don't have many options. Trust me, it's not my call. Not my call. But appreciate you guys, and really hope I get to see y'all with the live stream either Monday or Tuesday.